Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today, talking about the apparent rescue of Vinyl Me Please. There's a bunch of links down below. You got links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist that I put together every week, and the Patreon page. So make sure you check all that out. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So if you haven't been following this Vinyl Me Please saga that's been going on for probably about a year now, early last year Vinyl Me Please fired both, I think it was their CEO and CFO, for allegedly funneling money out of Vinyl Me Please and into a record pressing plant, which was supposed to be a completely separate entity. From what the board at Vinyl Me Please had been told, it was this pressing plant, Vinyl Media Pressing, was going to be a completely separate entity, and Vinyl Me Please was just going to partner with them to produce records in the future. But without the board's knowledge, this money, I think it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars, had been funneled out of Vinyl Me Please and into this pressing plant. Vinyl Me Please was also using their own employees to kind of help promote and push this pressing plant, which that was not supposed to be part of the deal either. So after all this came to light, Vinyl Me Please had to make drastic changes to their business to try to help recoup some of that cost that they've been losing. The first thing they did was raise the prices of their subscriptions, which were already expensive as it was. I want to say it was like over $400 for the year, that they would raise the prices by, I think it was 20 or 22% to over $500 for the year. So they're already taking a product that was, even though they made really good records, really good sounding records, it was a good product, but it was really expensive already. They made an already expensive product even more expensive. They would also end shipping to international subscribers, which made up a pretty sizable chunk of their base. And they would allow those people to finish out their subscriptions. And then once they were up, they just weren't going to be able to renew them. So at least they allowed a way for those subscribers to get the products that they'd paid for. And if you're not familiar with Vinyl Me Please's business structure, what you did when you subscribed to a specific track. And they had a rock track, they had country, I think there was a rap or hip hop track. There's also, I think they called it classics or essentials also. And what you would get is every single month there would be a new record or record a month that would come out for that track. And if you didn't want that specific album, you could always trade that for another track or another album in their collection, or you could just take it as store credit. I had looked at Vinyl Me Please for probably the last couple of years before I subscribed to them. And it was really when they added the rock track and they started having some titles that I was really interested in that I decided to subscribe to their service. And then once all this stuff kind of started coming to light last year, my subscription was up in November, I decided, there was just too many red flags and I just didn't renew. So they also ended their very popular country and rock tracks last year. And then eventually they got rid of the records of the month completely. So after 13 years in business, and amassing a huge subscriber base, they completely changed the way they did business. And then when all that was announced last year, it seemed like a lot of people started jumping ship. And that came out a couple of months ago. I actually did a video on the channel here that it come to light that Vinyl Me Please had gone into liquidation without notice to any subscribers, and they were still taking in new business. I got an email from Vinyl Me Please stating that they had acknowledged that there was a lot of shipping issues. People weren't getting their albums for the couple of months prior to that. But over the next month or month and a half, they were going to right the ship and it was going to go back to business as usual. They were going to get all these albums shipped out. And it looked really promising. And then I scrolled down through the email and noticed at the bottom that it was actually from a liquidation company and not Vinyl Me Please. So they're still advertising to bring in new business while being in liquidation. So if you're unfamiliar with liquidation, when a company goes into liquidation, the liquidation company will take all the assets, they will sell off everything, and then the money that's left over, they take and they'll pay creditors with. Vinyl Me Please did provide information to creditors on how to file a claim. I think they had until October, November this year to file a claim to try to get some money back from the company, but none of that went out to customers. That never went out to subscribers. I do know that there were subscribers that tried to file claims, but there's really no indication on whether or not they would get any money back on the system. So all these subscribers that had hundreds of dollars tied up in pre-orders, hundreds of dollars in credits sitting out there, they were just more than likely never going to see any of that money get back to them. And then huge news broke this week that Vinyl Me Please might survive all of this. And the reactions on social media, they were mixed. Some people were really happy about the news. Some people were still pretty pessimistic about what the future looks like for Vinyl Me Please. But it looks like, at least now, it looks like there might be something, a good way to salvage and save Vinyl Me Please and hopefully return them to what they once were. I think a lot of those people were pessimistic because how negative all the comments had been for literally months around Vinyl Me Please online. There's a lot of people that were just, for several months weren't getting shipments sent to them or weren't getting albums shipped to them. They'd sent out email after email to Vinyl Me Please without any kind of response. So it all just kind of flooded out there on social media. So while I think a lot of those people were hopeful that maybe this isn't the end, maybe they aren't out all this money, but because of the history of Vinyl Me Please over the last year and a half, I think a lot of people are at least cautiously optimistic. So news broke this week that one of Vinyl Me Please's competitors, Vinyl, had bought Vinyl Me Please out of bankruptcy. And to be completely honest, Vinyl Me Please is not the only subscription service that has gone through hard times over the last couple of years. I was a subscriber to Bandbox for probably maybe 6 or 8 months. This is a couple of years back now. And when I first subscribed to their service, I was getting some really good albums that were actually pretty hard to find. I think Pearl Jam Backspacer was one that had been out of print for a while. It was starting to become, $50, $60, $70 if you want to buy it on Discogs. I was able to get it for whatever the subscription price was. I think it was like $25 or $30 for the month. And it was nice. It came with this nice little fanzine along with the album. But, after a couple of months, I think, like I said, I think it was like 6 or 7 months I had their service, I started getting less and less interest in some of the albums that they had, so I'm just canceling my subscription. But Bandbox was a pretty popular service, and then late last year, they just ceased operations. And it was a similar situation what was going on Vinyl Me Please. A lot of those subscribers were just out the money. And there are some smaller competitors to Vinyl Me Please that have had success over the years, and Vinyl is one of those companies. They've been around for several years. They appear to be a very strong, very healthy company. They've got more of a smaller niche subscription service, nowhere close to the size of Vinyl Me Please, but from everything I read online, everyone's really happy with their service. So with the purchase of Vinyl Me Please by Vinyl, Nick Alt is going to take over as the new president of Vinyl Me Please. Vinyl also bought up Bandbox after the company failed, but as of the recording in this video, I don't think they've done anything with that brand yet. At least I haven't seen anything online that makes me think that they've relaunched that brand. But from the reports I've seen earlier this week, Nick Alt is determined to take Vinyl Me Please and return them to the glory they once had. Because like I said, for the last 13 years, Vinyl Me Please has been the premier subscription service for vinyl records, with tens of thousands of monthly subscribers. So there's a lot of potential still with Vinyl Me Please if you're able to right the ship. But due to the steps that Vinyl Me Please has taken over the last 8 to 12 months, to try to slash costs, they've lost a lot of that subscriber base. So Nick and the new people taking over for Vinyl Me Please, I think they've got a lot of work ahead of them. So this looks like great news for the thousands of subscribers out there that are owed pre-orders, that still have a lot of time left on their memberships. I was just talking to somebody on social media within the last probably month or so that said that right before all this news broke of the liquidation, literally days before that liquidation came out, that their yearly subscription had gone through. So they're signed up for another year and they were potentially out, $500+. And from what I've read over the last couple of days, it looks like Nick and this new team is interested in coming in, getting all these albums shipped out, honoring the pre-orders, and returning VMP to what they once were. But I guess time will only tell, how all this plays out. I will say that the Nick Alt and the guys taking over for Vinyl Me Please have only been in there for a very short period of time. I saw some comments on social media over the last couple of days of people asking if they'd received shipping notifications yet. I'm like, come on, it's only been a couple of days. It's going to take them, I would say, weeks, if not months, to get in there and fix everything that's wrong in the company. So it still might be a while before they start shipping out releases. But from what I've read, Nick seems sincere, at least, about going in and picking up where VMP left off and just trying to get this company back. Because I think if there's any way of salvaging Vinyl Me Please, they've got to pick up where business left off. They've got to go in and honor all this and try to keep as many of these subscribers as possible and draw in new ones. Because if you're going to go in there and say, look, I know you guys have all spent hundreds of dollars in this company and we're just going to not honor all that, I think that's something that would really drive away pretty much the rest of their business. Because honoring all those outstanding orders, I think will go a very long way in repairing the relationship that's been broke over the last year. But this is nothing that's new to vinyl. Not only do they own Vinyl Me Please now, they own Bandbox and they own Vinyl Box. So they've got multiple services all under this Vinyl Inc. Umbrella. So as someone that has loved a lot of Vinyl Me Please releases over the last few years, this is, I think this is a really positive twist to the story, because I'd love nothing other than to see Vinyl Me Please return to that being that premier service, and hopefully rolling back some of that pricing also, at least to what it was at the beginning of last year. The ironic thing in this entire story is that due to the alleged misdealings of the former CEO and CFO, there's this record pressing plant in Colorado. It's now called it's called Paramount Pressing and Plating, I think is what it's called now. It's up and fully functional now. It's a 14,000 square foot building. They're thriving. And now this new Vinyl Me Please entity has this record pressing plant right in its backyard that it is able to partnership with and not only meet the current demands, but they've got the ability to do all these pressings that they wanted to do, that they've done pre-orders for in the future. Because I've seen a lot of questions about this pressing plant over the last couple of weeks, and like I said, you can go online and look. The plant is up and running. It's doing great. They're cranking out albums. They're running at full capacity. So after 2 years of all these delays and all this scandal, it's actually worked out for them. I did find out that Vinyl was not the only company that was interested in buying Vinyl Me Please out of bankruptcy. There were other companies interested, but it seemed like all the other ones just wanted to break up the company and sell off parts, to different competitors, where Vinyl was the only company that wanted to keep it all together. It seems like they were the only company out there that had a vision for Vinyl Me Please, had a road back to what they consider the glory days of the company. We'll see how it works out, though. 6 months ago, 2 months ago, I thought Vinyl Me Please was dead. But not only does it look to be alive, I hope the company is able to rise up from the ashes and regain that mantle of being the king of vinyl record subscription services. And don't get me wrong, this all sounds very promising, but this would not be the first time that I've seen something like this happen, where a company is failing, another company steps in, assumes ownership of that company, and then it still all falls apart and the company fails anyway. I hope that's not the case, but, I'm somebody that's also being cautiously optimistic about what's going on with Vinyl Me Please and the future of the company. I would also like to see Bandbox become fully operational again, because what they offered was very different than what Vinyl Me Please did. Vinyl Me Please did these custom pressings by these bigger artists, where a lot of the Bandbox stuff, yes, they'd have like Tom Petty releases or Pearl Jam releases, but they had a lot of really smaller artists on their service also. And while they were competitors in the sense that they were both offering subscription-based services, they offered two very different experiences. Ultimately, I wish Vinyl all the best. I hope that they succeed with their mission. I'm interested to see what they do with Vinyl Me Please, not only in the short term, but also in the long term, because I think there's a lot of promising things that they could do with this service that could take them from what they were before and making it even better. But it's going to take the owners a very long time to sort out the mess of what Vinyl Me Please has become over the last couple of years. And that's why I said earlier, I would not expect to see anything really change, at least for the next couple of months. And I'm sure the new owners would appreciate some patience, but if you're a subscriber that is owed hundreds of dollars, either in product or credits, they're not going to be patient for very long. And there's undoubtedly going to be issues and hiccups along the way that, with a subscriber base the size of Vinyl Me Please, some of them may be hard to overcome. But for the sake of customers that stand to lose a lot of money if Vinyl Me Please folds, I hope they succeed. Because as much as I complained about the prices of Vinyl Me Please releases, when they're running like $55 plus a month, I love the albums I got from them. They do a really good job pressing really high quality albums. They have a really good product. Some of the best products on the market. Yes, they were expensive, but I would love to be able to go back and subscribe to their service and go back to seeing those high quality releases come out. So all I can say is Vinyl Me Please is alive, at least for now. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. I'd love to know what you guys think of this. I've been following this Vinyl Me Please saga for the last year plus, really ever since I subscribed to the service a couple of years back. And it's taken a bunch of twists and turns over the last year. I was really disappointed when I saw them start raising prices and getting rid of tracks and really kind of, completely changing the system that they'd had in place for the last 13 years. So I'd love to see Nick Alt come in, go back, just kind of right the ship, put everything back in place, start cranking out these albums again. And like I said, hopefully kind of roll back some of the pricing. I know it's going to be hard because they're going to need to recoup the costs of buying the company, but hopefully they go back to some of the older pricing structures that they had before. Because that was my big issue when this whole pressing plant thing first came up. When it was first announced, the way it was presented was this pressing plant was going to be part of Vinyl Me Please. And then they announced that they were going to press, I think it was Yield was the first album that they were going to press after that announcement. and it was like $60 or $65. My very first thought was, are you trying to fund this entire project off this one release because it was so expensive? So I'm hoping that Nick Alt and the new owners don't try to do something similar, because I think if they're not able to reduce those subscription costs, I think they're going to have a hard time bringing some people back into their service. Let me know what you guys think. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.